You tried it. Here we go. 11.3 parabolas in general conic form. Okay. So what are we doing here? We're going to talk about the general form of all conics. So all conics have a general form of this, right? Okay. What changes from the conic to conic is how it affects each term. Okay. So you have your 5 terms, A, B, C, D, and E. Got it? What are our 5 terms? A, B, C, D, and E. All right. Now, for parabolas, what's happening here is that for parabola, you're either going to have A term or B term, meaning that there's only going to be one squared term. Does that make sense? So for parabolas, there's only going to be what? One squared term. Okay. And so either you'll have your A section or you'll have your B, but it goes from there. Now, depending on which one you have, if you're given your A, that means that you're going to have a vertical parabola. And if you did your 11.1, this is the standard form for a vertical parabola. So we're going to write vertical. Okay. Yes. Agreed. That's the standard form of a vertical parabola. Or if you are, if you're giving your B, that means you're going to have a horizontal parabola. And this is the standard form of a horizontal parabola. From the standard form of the parabola, you can identify your vertex. And for both forms, your vertex is what? HK. It's your H comma your K. What changes are their focus and the directrix, right? So for a vertical, your focus, which is a point inside of your parabola, that is C distance away, right? So you have to have that C distance. And how do we find it? So your focus is what? Anyone? Everybody?
It's C, it's H, comma, K, minus, plus C. Plus C.
It's plus C, right?
Plus C.
I was like, wait.
I thought you were talking about your diagram.
Huh?
Oh, right.
I'm just recalling. It's already written in your notes.
Oh, like.
I mean, you can figure out on your paper if you want to write it. At the bottom, you're not using that whole page. Like on your paper, we're not using all of that. You have to say at the bottom if you need to write it. All right. All right. So recalling again. So focus. And then the directrix of a vertical is a line, right? So it's a line. It's a horizontal line. It's a horizontal line, which means it's going to be y equals. And it's y equals what?
It's H minus K minus C.
K minus C. Okay. If these are things that you don't remember on your note card for your test next Monday, what should you put? It on your note card, right? Probably a good idea. All right, horizontal again, vertex is still HK, but your focus and your directrix are changing, right? So your focus now is what? The focus for the horizontal.
It's H plus C.
It's going to be your H plus C, comma, your K. Yes.
Why don't we do sine?
Didn't we just do a whole trigonometry unit?
You can't, we don't know how to graph triangle.
Yeah, it's not graphing. You don't graph a triangle.
You can graph triangle.
No, you're graphing 3 lines with restrictions.
You can totally graph triangle. Okay.
3 lines with restrictions. Continuing. And our directrix this time, instead of it being horizontal, our directrix is vertical. So it's going to be X equals H minus C. All right, ready? Here we go. So it says to convert each equation into a standard form by completing the square. So the first thing we want to do is identify whether it's horizontal or vertical. So step 1 is to determine whether it's vertical or horizontal. Okay. By doing that, you're going to identify which variable is squared. So when we look here, our variable that is squared is x squared. Because the x is squared, that means that we have a vertical. Okay, because x is squared, we have a vertical. When our y is squared, then we have a horizontal. Still good? Okay, step 2 is you're going to move. In this case, we're moving our x terms away. So we're going to move our x terms. So all terms that have x's in it. So I'm going to be left with 8y minus 4 equals x squared plus 4x. Nope, not plus or minus. Yeah, I did that right. I want to skip a step. Pew, pew. There we go. Because I have to subtract the x squared and subtract the 4x. Questions about moving our x terms? Questions, comments, concerns about step 2? All right. Step 3. Step 3, we're going to complete the square on the right side. So we're going to complete the square. So we're going to go through all the steps to complete the square on the right side. All right. So the first thing I have to do in order to complete the square is that my leading coefficient has to be +1. Is it +1? No. So in order to become +1, I have to divide everything by -1. So I have -8y plus 4 equals x squared plus 4x. Now I can complete the square. Remembering when I'm completing the square, my new c comes from whatever my b is. So this is my b. Exactly. b divided by 2 squared. So what is our c? 4. And what you do to one side for completing the square, you have to do to the other. So we're going to add 4 to the other side. So now my equation is still balanced because I added 4 to the left and 4 to the right. What are your questions about step 3 of completing the square? Okay, step 4 is going to be factor and simplify. So step 4, we're going to factor and simplify. Okay, so I'm simplifying on this side and I'm left with -8y plus 8 equals, I'm factoring here. Remember, your squared binomial is just going to be half of your b. And what is half of my b? 2. So x plus 2 squared. Okay, what are your questions about step 4? Nope. Step 5 is to get to create your y binomial, your left side binomial, which means that we're going to factor. So you're getting rid of your leading coefficient. And then we're going to divide. So we're going to factor and divide. So my leading coefficient is -8. So I'm going to factor out -8. When I factor out -8, I'm left with y minus 1. Agreed? Okay, then I'm going to divide so that this can just be a binomial by itself. So I'm going to divide by -8. And then I'm left with my standard form. Y minus 1 equals -1 over 8 times x plus 2 squared. Now I'm in standard form. Can you tell me my vertex?
Yes.
What's my vertex?
It is.
Other way.
2, -1.
-2, 1, right?
Yes.
So I can tell you the vertex. Then I can find my C and I can then go ahead and find my focus and my directrix. I'll leave you to practice that during your handy dandy assignment. But remember, your C comes from the denominator of your coefficient. So for this problem, we know that C is going to equal, anyone else? What should your C equal here? 4 times what makes 8? There we go. 2. So technically C is a distance, so it's not negative, but it's good to treat it as a negative, like I said in the video, so that when you're finding your focus and directrix, you do it correctly. Yeah, so that's what you want to make sure. So C is -2, but your C, your distance, is actually the absolute value of -2. Okay. And then you should be able to find your focus and directrix from there, right? All right. Okay. Let's do this again. I'm not going to write the steps out. Is that okay? I'm just going to say them, but not write them. Okay. So step 1 to myself, I'm going to say, okay, is this horizontal or vertical? Well, I need to identify so my y is square. So this is going to be what?
Horizontal.
Horizontal. So I know that my goal is to be a horizontal parabola. Make sense? So after you establish what you're going for, that means you need, this time, since it's horizontal, I need to move my y's. So in order to move my y's, I'm subtracting y squared and adding 6y. So I'm left with -8x minus 7 equals -y squared plus 6y. Okay. After I've moved my y's, now I'm going to complete the square of the right side. Okay. In order to complete the square of the right side, my leading coefficient has to be a positive 1. What do I need to do to make this a positive 1? Divide by -1. So that gives me 8x plus 7 equals y squared minus 6y. Now I can complete the square. To complete the square, it's b divided by 2 squared. My b is 6. It would be something like 9. What I add to one side? All right. So now, all right. So now we're at the point where we factor and simplify. So we're going to simplify. We get 8x plus 16 equals y minus 3 squared. You can always double check your binomial here to make sure. -3 plus -3 is -6. -3 times -3 is 9. If that doesn't work, then that means you did something wrong. Okay. Now you're going to divide your left side by its leading coefficient. What is my leading coefficient? 8. So I'm going to divide everything by 8. So I factor out the 8 and I'm left with x plus 2 equals y minus 3 squared. Lastly, I need to get my single binomial by itself. So I'm going to divide by the coefficient. And we are left with x plus 2 equals 1/8 times y minus 3 squared. And there is my standard form. Okay. Okay. So your vertex is what?
3, -2.
-2, 3. It's always your h is with your x.
Okay.
Your k is with your y. So we have -2, 3. And then you can find your C, your focus, your directrix. Okay. All right. So guess what time it is?
You do.
It's on your own time. Okay. You're gonna go through the steps
For number 3.
for number 3.
Okay.
All right, and go. All right, so remember, first thing you're gonna do is look for your squared. So what did we determine this to be?
Horizontal.
Horizontal. Because our y is squared, so we need to move our y's. So after we move our y's, we're left with 12x minus 20 equals negative y squared plus 8y. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay? And then we're going to complete the square, right? In order to complete the square, I have to change the sign, basically. Did you all just start realizing that you're just changing everyone's signs?
Yep.
So you have your negative 12x plus 20 equals y squared minus 8y plus what?
16.
Plus 16. And what I add to one side, I have to add to the other. Okay, now we're going to simplify and factor. So we have negative 12x plus 36 equals y minus 4 squared. We're going to divide by our leading coefficient. Our leading coefficient was negative 12. To factor that out, and we're left with x minus 3 equals y minus 4 squared.
Why is it y minus 2?
I added my 8. And then when we changed our sign, it
okay,
became a
that's right.
negative. Yeah,
Yeah, I see.
I
I
like-
just did it.
I was like, did I do something? It could have been me. We all know. All right, so then we're left with x minus 3 equals negative 112 y minus 4 squared. So from here, I can identify the vertex at least. What's my vertex?
Oh, it's 3, 4.
3, 4. And then I can find my C and find my directrix and my focus. Agreed? All right. The last is just more practice for you. So here, going through and practicing and identifying what you have. So on your assignment, it's going to ask you what type of conic do you have. So you're telling me whether it's a circle or a vertical parabola or a horizontal parabola, right? And then you're going to go from there. So just to recall, this one again would be a what? Vertical. Good job. It'll be a vertical parabola. Right? All right. What about our last example? What would this one be?
Conic.
What kind of conic? What's the only other one we've learned so far? Circle.
Circle.
This would be a circle. Why is it a circle?
Because x squared and y squared.
X squared and y squared are both squared, okay? And equal to each other. Do we see that? They're both squared and equal to each other. So therefore, this one would be a circle, which is our 11.2, right? Okay, so remember, you gotta be able to tell the difference between the conic formulas. All right, circles, your A term and B term are gonna both be squared and be the same, right? On parabolas, you're either gonna have an A term or a B term. You will not have both. Got it? Yes? All right, so you have your 11.3 to be working on tomorrow. And then we'll resume after testing.